And our journey with statistics continues, specifically with regards to recoding data. So we left off using the point and click feature where we've gone ahead and specified how we would like to recode V1, V2, and V3 into these new variables: V1 recode, V2 recode, V3 recode. Now that we've gone through and we've done all of this specified recoding, we can press OK, and this is going to create our new variables, or we can click paste, and this is going to create our syntax file for us. Because I would like for us to shift over and think more about doing this in syntax, I'm going to click paste so we can see the data code, the syntax code that is created. And so I click paste, and what we saw happen over here was the data SPSS created a new lines of code, which we have put over here, and it had done all of the work for us. That's sort of what's wonderful about this, is the fact that we don't have to generate the syntax code. SPSS has done it for us. And what we see here is that we'll be able to save this syntax file, so from now on, whenever we come back and we might want to rerun and recode these variables again, we don't have to go back through all of that point and click and code and whatnot, but rather we have all of the code we generated based upon those decisions right here. And so with that in mind, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just put a little note in my data file, syntax window, I should say. I'm going to put a little note in the syntax file that says that this is recoding V1, V2, V3 to handle missing values. The reason I'm doing that is just simple data management etiquette protocol, if you will, because I will forget completely what I'm trying to do here if I do not leave myself little notes along the way. So we have our syntax here, but if we look into the data file that we've been using, we do not have a new variable yet. If I pull this all the way down to the bottom, which is where SPSS is going to insert any new variables we create, we do not have any new variables. And so this hasn't done anything yet. But and the reason for that is because we simply told SPSS to create the syntax, not to create the variables. Now that we've created the syntax, we need to highlight it, run it in order to create the variables. And so I've highlighted these three rows. I hit Control R, and what you saw was the data file pop away there. And the reason for that is because my output window simply tells me what I just did. And so that's what we see down here. If I pull back up my data file, though, I'll see down here at the bottom my three new variables that I was interested in running. And so one of the things that we would probably want to do is we want to check to see, well, did my recode work? And a great way to do that, and we'll return to this throughout the semester, is to compare the previous variable to the newly recoded variable. So in this case, we can take one of these, for example, and we can run a frequency on it. Within the syntax file, the shortcut for frequency is FREQ, freak, and then the variable name, which is V1, as well as the recoded variable name, which is V1 recode, and then I'm going to put a period. I'm going to hit Control R, and that's going to run the line of code I'm on. And what we'll see here is that we now have V1 up top and our recoded variable down here at the bottom. And so you'll want to compare to see if the values have conveyed correctly. So we got a value of 1 has 72 cases, a value of 2 has 96, a value of 3 has 118, a value of 4 has 794, a value of 5 has 1055, a value of 5 has 1055. What we'll see here is that there is no value of 7 and 9 anymore, but rather those were set to system missing, and 12 plus 2 is 14, and 14 cases were set to system missing. And so now what we've done is we've recoded our data to handle the missing data, the missing cases, that missing variable values that we had. And so this provides us with a slightly cleaned up version of the data set. You'll notice that we lost our value labels here. For example, never is not associated with this value. If you are interested in doing that, there are ways of assigning value labels to your variable that's very straightforward, and there's plenty of resources available online to figure that one out. And so we've recoded this variable to get rid of missing values, but there are other reasons why we might want to recode a variable. And so we can go back here and we can run a frequency distribution of a couple other variables to get an idea about what these might be. So I'm going to reset this, and now I'm going to pull these three variables, v5.1, v5.2, v5.3, and I want to look at a frequency of them. And so this variable is asking for them to report on the material situation of teachers, of farmers, of skilled laborers. By material situation, I'm assuming they're asking something to the ballpark of how good do they have it or how bad do they have it. And so respondents were asked to indicate if it was very bad, bad, somewhat bad, slightly bad, not good or bad, slightly good, somewhat good, good, very good. And then we have, again, these values down here at the bottom of don't know, refused, and missing. While this is, again, we have good distributions here, what we'll see is these values are not necessarily useful to us as valid values. So we're going to want to reset these to missing, but the other thing is we have 9 categories here. While that's nice from a statistics perspective, and we'll talk about that throughout the rest of the semester in terms of having the quantitative-like variables, those are a ton of categories, and we might not necessarily be interested in all of those categories. And so we can recode this variable in order to get rid of this missingness, but also to collapse some of these other categories. And so we might think to ourselves, what I'm really interested in is I'm interested in looking at people that say whether or not teachers have it slightly good, somewhat good, good, or very good. In other words, I want to separate between people that have that think they have it bad or they don't really have an opinion versus people that think they have it good. And so to do that, we need to do a recode. I'm not going to go back up to the point and click anymore. Rather, I'm going to work over here in the syntax file since we've started to generate that one so we can see how this works in terms of typing and in ourselves. And so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to leave myself a little note to let me know what I'm doing. And so this is recode variables v5.1, v5.2, v5.3 in order to collapse categories and get rid of missing. And now I'm going to go through and do my recode statement. And so the recode statement begins with the command of recode. Now I can type recode with all caps. I can also type it in lowercase. I can also type it in mixed case. It does not matter. SPSS is not sensitive to upper and lower case. Other statistical software programs, again, I'm looking at USAS, are very sensitive. State has also got some personality when it comes to upper and lower case too. But so keep that in mind if you're surfing from one software to the next. But for SPSS, it's relatively flexible in terms of upper and lower cases. And so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take the variables that we have here. And I'm, well, for our particular instance, we're going to go ahead and look at variable 5.1 first. So this is the one, and again, the values that I wanted to collapse is I was saying that I want to take everyone that has reported bad up to no opinion. So that's a value of 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So values 1 through 5, I'm going to set to 0, and values... So, and I wanted to take anybody that thought anything about good, values 6, 7, 8, and 9, and I'm going to code that. So 6 through 9, I'm going to make that into a 1. And this exact same moment while I'm collapsing these variables, I can also handle my missing values by specifying that they will be equal to system missing. So I'm going to say 97 through 99 is equal to sys miss. And now what I need to do is I need to specify what I'm making a new variable. So what do I want to call that new variable? And so I'm recoding the old variable using these rules into my new variable, which I will call v5.1 underscore recode. Again, this is the variable name I'm making up. It does not have to be this way. It can be whatever you want to. And then we can hit execute, or we can type in execute, and this is going to make sure that it runs the command. And we are going to return to this example in the next video.